early years, like for an American audience, whereabouts did you grow up? What was it like?
I was born on a council estate in the West Midlands, Walsall, 1965, into a family of 5. Came from a very poor background. I was the middle child, and although a poor family, I was the middle child that went rogue. You know, back in the day then, there was a lot of gang sort of warfare going on and people struggling for sort of authority positions, if you like, and I kind of immediately graduated towards that. By the age of 9, I was getting into small gangs and getting into trouble, stealing, that sort of stuff, and at the age of 11, I then found myself in juvenile court for actual bodily harm, grievous bodily harm, all sorts of stuff. And in between this year of being 9 and 11, I joined a boxing club, an illegal boxing club, and an old man that I stole from took me to one side and said, listen, boxing is not about brutality, it's a poor man's game of chess. It's about anticipation, it's about thinking, it's about using your feet, using your brain. And I'll never forget those words. And the second thing he said to me was, it's about you as an individual going always a little further, because you can. And strangely enough, many, many years later, then when I joined the SAS, that is part of our prayer, always a little further, and I've kept that as my mantra since. So I learned a lot of sort of lessons along the way, although I was a rogue child. I was fortunate enough to meet influential people that put me on the track, and he was the first one outside of my father that sort of sat me down and says, this is what you need to be doing. And he's very disciplined to me, and for whatever strange reason, as bad as I was, I understood discipline, and I kind of needed that control. And it was difficult for my father to do it because he was always working. He was working 12-hour shifts, and Mum was doing the same. Hence the reason I went rogue, and I could get away with it. 9 out of 10 times I get away with it, and I played those numbers. And everybody's heard the saying of, he got in with the wrong crowd. Well, I freely admit, and I know, and every child does know, I was the wrong crowd. You know, we always look for somebody else to blame. And again, as I've gone through my life, I realise you need to own up to what you really are and what you're doing in order to move forward. So, growing up on a council estate, I started getting in trouble. I was in trouble with the law, but the boxing kept me sort of controlled. And then eventually I met the second most influential man in my life, which was a guy who ran the cadets, the military cadets that my brother introduced me to, and it was Marine cadets. And again, he talked to me like an adult, and I needed that. If I stepped out of line, I got a slap, I got put straight. Unfortunately, in today's world, we've lost all that. We've lost that discipline, we've lost that respect. And for me, that's what kept me allowed to get me to where I am today, because I was still going rogue. So I had a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday boxing training, disciplined. Tuesday and a Thursday, I was at cadets, but I was still getting in trouble on the weekend. So
yeah, I mean, you say there that about you managed to get away with the trouble because your dad was working so hard. Describe you know when you say poor, like what's that situation like living at home?
It was poor. It was a loving family, but we didn't have anything. For instance, our food would be, my dad would make a pot of stew on the Monday, and that would be the food for the whole of the week. I used to go to school with a hole in the bottom of my shoes, and my mum would just put cardboard in there. And that's fact, and we'd walk to school. You know, it was a couple of miles. I was a kid. And I remember one situation where, you know, I was embarrassed by being in school with holes in my shoes, and I realised we went to the gym, and I didn't even have any PE kit. None of us did. You know, I wasn't the only kid, not just our family, there's a lot of families. And I remember seeing a basket full of plimsolls. And I saw some plimsolls, and then I thought, wow, they look brand new. And I also knew the caretaker every morning at 7 in the morning swept the gym and left the doors open. So I left the house before about 20 to 7 in the morning to go to school, walk to school, and I lay in the snow on the bank watching the gym. And when the caretaker opened the doors and went through to the change rooms, I ran in, stole those pumps. That's how poor we was. And I wore those trainers. And also, part of being in the cadets was I got a set of boots, and I wore those boots for school. You know, I wasn't ashamed by it, but people used to take the piss out of us and go, oh, you know, council estate kid, blah, blah, blah. But that's who we were, and everything was hand down. So my brother handed down to me, I handed down to my brother, etc. You know, it was literally the motto in our house was first up, best dressed. Literally grab what you can and that's yours. Yeah, but it was, you know, I say poor, we didn't go on holidays. Our only holidays we ever went on, we went to Rhyl and lived in a caravan for 5 days where we would all start squabbling and fighting, you know, in the rain. Never been abroad, I'd never been on an airplane in my life. First time I went on an airplane was when I joined the army, and I was getting thrown out of it with a parachute on my back. You know, so it was a tough upbringing. And like I say, there was a lot of trouble in the area. We had the riots as well, you know, the blacks and white riots in the late 70s, 80s. That was all in my area. We were a mixed community and it was brilliant. We all got on together, but we all had our own little gangs. And then at the age of 13, I couldn't understand what I was learning at school. You know, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, all that sort of stuff didn't make any sense to me. And while I was in the cadets at the age of 11, I was being taught first aid, how to navigate, and that made sense to me. I could see how that was going to be used in my life. So I kind of, and wrongly now I know that, I disbanded school. And at the age of 13, I got expelled from school for gluing the maths teacher to the chair, thinking it was clever. And he captured me, put me in detention, and was determined I was going to do detention, and was 2 floors up. And he was in the room with me, keeping me there. And as soon as he went to the door to do something, I opened the window and jumped out into the bushes and ran off. And I don't think I went back to school again, over there to probably on a Friday to get picked for the football team for Saturday. You know, knowing that it was not right. And then at the age of 15, you know, I ended up in a fight and I got stabbed. Yeah, and it was at the time of the skinheads, the rockers, and the punks, all this sort of mixed craziness going on, and violence was getting worse, knives, drugs was getting involved. When I say drugs, it was mainly glue sniffing, which I'm happy to say I never got into, but a lot of friends did. Gangs were meeting up and slashing each other with cutthroats, and it was getting violent. And then I ended up in a fight. I got stabbed literally about 100 metres from my house. And I remember crawling back to the house. And as I was crawling, I was sort of going in and out, and it went from pain to sort of, as if I was drunk. I was like floating and realising it's because the blood was leaving my body and I was about to collapse, you know. And I remember crawling through the door, blood everywhere, and seeing my mum cleaning. She saw me and screamed. And the next thing I remember, she put this woolly jumper directly on the wound, and that woke me up again. I was like, ah! You know. But I remember that moment of crawling and thinking, I'm going to die. I've got to get out of it. I have to change my lifestyle. I've got to go. Jump back a little bit. While I joined the cadets, I kind of gravitated then towards loving the military. As I said, my schooling went to the side, and I thought, this is where I need to go. I'm going to go in the military as long as I can keep a clear record. But bear in mind, I had a now criminal record, which went on wouldn't leave till I was 15. Although I got in a lot more trouble, I never really got caught. I never got another court case, even after I got stabbed. So I knew that's where I wanted to go. I wasn't sure exactly where in the military I wanted to go, but I knew the military was going to be my saving grace. And it turned out to be that a bit later on in life. Also at the age of 15, once I recovered from this, I got a job. I was working in a factory, illegal, working the night shift, and I was earning £80 cash a week, which I was giving to my mum, obviously, for the family. And I had an accident. I slipped and fell into a vat of caustic soda, burnt all the skin off my feet, ended up getting rushed to hospital in the middle of the night. And I remember going to the hospital and being told I had to say that I broke into the factory, because if I didn't, everybody else in that factory would have lost their job. They'd have closed the factory down because it was illegal. So that's what I did. The police turned up, but there was no criminal investigation or anything else. It was just me, a little scumbag who had a record anyway, broke into a factory. And it went no further, thank God. And it took a while for me to recover. And in between this period, I applied to join the military as a young soldier. And 2 things. One, I couldn't go in because of the injuries. So I couldn't join at 16 until these injuries were cleared up. Secondly, they found out I had a broken femur from when I was a kid. I didn't declare that, so that had to be checked. And the other reason was I was just over 8 stone because of boxing at this weight for years, and they said I had to be 10 stone. So I stopped training. I was eating, drinking as best I could, going back and forth to the military careers office, waiting to get in. And I eventually joined just after 17, and when I joined the parachute regiment, and that's when my whole life changed. Then, you know, I realised I'd done the right thing. I knew this is where I needed to be, and I was now looking at real men, not little troublemakers from where I was that I thought was a big fish and I wasn't. These were real men, been to war just after the Falklands, respected, and I remember looking and thinking, that's who I want to be. I want to be remembered and respected for something good like these people. And that was I've got to do this moment.